another day, another work. We're gonna move the mama cows over right quick, and this is the night that we got our feed order in. We've actually already unloaded it, but we have not actually unloaded everybody and put each food of each person's in each car. So that's kind of what we're gonna do tonight. We have over, gosh, 18,000 pounds here at my home, which can be very, very, very stressing, because guess what? I don't have insurance or extra liability to cover everybody's order. I have to get orders anyway, and so I try to be nice, and we try to share the cost and moving the feed and things like that. So I mean, it's a good thing, but it kind of scares me at the same time because I'm taking on the extra liability. So anytime we get the feed order, I'm always a little stressed, because I'm thinking, you know, hey, we need to get back home, and we need to make sure that everybody's here to pick up. And another thing, see, we had to take 2 trailers because of our load today, and we had a blowout. Of course, something like that takes place. So I'm fixing to, right now, move over these mama cows. After I move over these mama cows, then we will actually get this feed loaded, unloaded, moved around. It's a lot of moving parts, and it's got to happen. And you notice it's getting darker, and it's actually getting colder. We were supposed to have a warmer day, but it is not warmer. Of course, one of these mamas has a baby nursing on them, which is what I try to beat every day. Right, let's move them. That's done. We've got them moved over. Aiden moved them, actually moved the whole herd this morning for me while I was at work. We had to get them on new grasses over here, so they moved over there. We're gonna leave the bull with them for just a few more weeks. I think he's bred them both, but I don't want to take my chances and it not happen. So he showed interest in them. It looked like he bred them both, but we're gonna give him 3 more weeks, and that way I know for sure that they're bred, because in 3 weeks they would typically be back in heat. So if he shows no interest to them in the next 3 weeks, we're good to go, and we can put him back with the Herefords, and he can start breeding any mama that's open there too. Some of this we have to do by hand. Some of it we can do with the tractor. It all just depends on how many people's getting the loads and what they're getting. For instance, we're getting some people, like for instance, the first ones are usually they're getting pallets. So it's easy because we can load the whole pallet from one location to the next. Some people get split orders. They split 20 or split 10 or split 40 bags. And when they do that, we have to break it down. Well, one good thing is we have a good group, and everybody comes together. We co-op it, and we just start slinging bags everywhere. Hopefully all these bags are good shape. That's the only other thing, is we don't know if there's busted bags or anything like that, because it's one of those cases where you can't see all the bags until you start opening the pallets. So that's always a risk that we take too. So among the busted tire, which was horrible, and the fact of taking on the responsibility and the liability of it, we have to worry about the busted bags. It's all worth it, especially because we haven't had a lot of busted bags. But when they are busted, or when something happens, or it rains, it just adds a whole nother layer of stress that we have to get. Look at all this feed. We look like a feed co-op. Look at this. So this is what I mean though about building community. This saves us, this saves all the people that buy. We have about 15 people that purchase, and it saves them money, saves us money, and it's good to build community together, good high quality feed. All right, I'm gonna try to get in the light. I called myself turning on the camera, but I did not turn on the camera. But we got every amount of feed loaded. We bought over 18,000 pounds. We loaded 14,500 pounds. There's a few more people coming by and picking up the rest of that tomorrow, and then we will have the rest, of course, for us. So it's been a long day. I'm glad to get that done though. It always stresses me out with everything that went on with it. So I've got to get the tractor moved back in, and we're gonna go in and try to call it a night for at least the outside chores anyway. It's next day, and I come home from work, and to see we've started on our pad. I'm excited. This is the pad for the greenhouse for Misty. She's been wanting. This will be a monster greenhouse. I can't wait to show you all of it over the next coming weeks and months. We're gonna do it slowly because we do everything with cash. We don't do any kind of borrowing money for that kind of stuff. So we'll do it slowly, but I make sure to show you how we do it, so that way if you're interested in that, you'll be able to do it. Well, all feed was put in. We showed you a little bit of the pad. We had to actually have to show you a little bit more of it. Got finished, but it started raining on us, so at least the pad is finished, but now we move into inside chores. So for the rest of the day, what we've got to do is we've got to get some sausage done. We process 2 hogs. Now, let me kind of tell you our rationale and what we do. So these are our lard hogs. Typically, we break down all our own hogs. We do all the deboning. We do everything from, you know, start to finish, from raising them to having them to ultimately processing every part of them. These 2 lard hogs, just because the way it fell, how crazy it's been around here, we got someone else to debone it for us. So it's still, I mean, it's in big chunks. We got to turn around and actually process it now. So we broke it down into lard and then broke it down into, of course, cuttings. When we do lard hogs, because we have our commercial hogs, it's going to be pork chops, bacons, and all that, the bigger hogs that we have. We also raise a forest-raised homestead hog called American Guinea hog. What those hogs are for are simply our fat source for lard. Yes, they do provide meat too, but you're not going to get the typical pork chops or bacon that you would get off a traditional hog. Now, you can get the Boston butts if you want to. You can get the shoulders, but it's hard to get a good quality big pork chop. You're going to get a very fatty pork chop, or it's going to be a very fatty bacon. So we tend to use these pigs as mostly our sausage hogs, so that way we don't have to use so much cuttings for our big hogs. So our big hogs we'll process in March, which is going to be 4. But these are our 2 American Guinea hogs. So today that's what we're going to do, is actually get started finishing up on those, processing them down to actually sausage. We usually do link sausage and patty sausage. This time, because we still have a lot of link left from the last hogs, we're actually going to do just patty sausage. And Misty wanted, just so our beef goes longer, she wanted us to just do some ground pork. Because, again, we keep our hogs pretty lean and pretty clean. You don't have that kind of fatty taste when you're processing, making tacos or anything like that. So what we do is we mix our beef hamburger meat with our pork meat, so we're getting good quality meats on both sources, but it allows us to make our ground beef and our cows go longer, because it's a lot easier to grow our hogs than it is our beef. It takes a lot longer to grow beef. So we're actually processing a steer next week. We did chickens a few weeks ago, pork this week, and then we'll do another pork harvest in the bigger pork harvest, which is our pork chops and all that, in March. So we literally have you know, a year and a half, 2 years worth of food in a matter of just 2 or 3 months. So that's what we like, especially when it comes to meat. So we've got everything in the cool room. I know some people have not seen our cool room, so I'll show it to you. We built this cool room. We had a guy come help us. We designed it. We had a guy come help us figure out that design and making it come to fruition. So he helped us understand insulation and how we should do it. So we basically built, if you've been on our other channels, you may have seen this, but we basically built just a big monster refrigerator with a cool bot. So we've got the door, this main door, and then we insulated it for another 4 inches worth of this poly wall insulation. So I'll show it to you. So in our cool room we have our we have our cool tub, our ice bath. I have not been using it lately. But in here you see that we have this air conditioner set up. This is a cool bot. We keep it around 34 to 36, just depending on what time of year it is. You see how thick this is. So this is normal wall here. And then we have a full set of insulation. Then we have a wall board, which is like a plywood piece. Then we have another piece of plywood, 3 more sets of this, 3 more sets of this inch thick insulation. So it ends up being around a little over 4 inches, I think, total. All right, well, you can see the 2x4, the old original 2x4 for the door. So it sticks out even further than the 2x4 that's set in the wall that holds the door. So we actually use this to hang our hogs and hang any other animal. We hung some sheep in here, we've hung deer in here. So we hang just about everything. It's a big room. We actually probably didn't need this size, but, well, we say that. We think we didn't need this size, but then when we start having 4 or 5 hog at a time, it is easier to hang them, and it is easier to make sure that we have space to work in. We try not to cut in here. We try to cut in our prepper's pantry, which is right next to it. So we'll bring them out, get them out real quick. Again, I'm showing you what it looks like, but typically we would not hold this door open long at all, just because we don't want our air conditioner working harder. So we've got all our lard and our meat kind of cut up. Now we just have to break it down further to actually get it into rendering our lard. And we have a video on how we render our lard, which is our fat source. And what we cook, grill, what we cook, fry, whatever we do, and we do it in lard and butter because that's natural sources of fat on our farm. But then we also are going to go ahead and grind up the sausage and of course meat for us to utilize. And this so far, this is these two hogs were together around at about 380 pounds worth of meat. So they're probably, you know, 500-600 pound hogs. But remember, because they're American Guinea hog, I'm getting a monster source of that is going to be some of that fat. And in most cases, you wouldn't want a lot of fat on your commercial hogs. We try to keep our other forest pigs leaner, so our bacons and our pork chop is a better cut. You're getting a lot more meat. We don't want to raise them in barns to make them fat. So what we do is raise our American Guinea hogs to give us that fat source. The other hogs we want a little leaner, so that way they're building more meat up, so we're getting a better quality pork chop or bacon overall. So let's get started. I don't know if you saw this. I wanted to show it to you. If you have not seen our cool room, you know, you go off the specs that the CoolBot puts out. It tells you if you got this square footage room, this height, this is what you need. We built ours very tall because we wanted to be able to hang our food and hang our meats. And you know, if we're hanging a 400 or 500 pound animal, you know, that's 8, 9, 10 foot. So our room is actually 10 foot total in height. And we also anchored, we put a anchor to the frame, so everything is anchored, steel framed in, to where no matter what we hang, it would actually have to pull down rafters to pull down the cow or to pull down the pork or whatever we have hanging. So we've got it pretty beefed up to hold the animals we need it to hold. We're only going to get out the pork actual meat. We're going to leave the lard into the cooler because we're not ready to render it down. And if you bring it out too fast, it can get really messy and hard to deal and hard to cut. So I actually like it a little cold, almost frozen, so that when we start cutting up the lard, it's easier to work with. Anytime you butcher or slaughter an animal, if it's in the cold season, it's a lot better and easier to deal with. So like in hog season, like once we get ready to process the hog, we actually want it hanging a little bit, not to age it like you would be for deer or red meat, but you want to get it so cold to where it's not frozen, but almost frozen, because it's easier to deal with. If you're dealing with loose fat on any animal, first of all, it's hard to deal with. You're going to end up cutting something like your fingers, and we're working with very sharp knives when we're breaking down and deboning and using saws. So we actually like it really cold. So for us, we're going to go ahead and leave the lard in there right now. We're going to work on sausage first, and then we'll worry about cutting up the lard, getting it into crock pots, and rendering it down. We put it in these big old packs so it helps kind of make it easier to move it around, and then we'll have to actually cut it down into smaller spots to run through the grinder. I have about 6 bags of pork that we're going to work on about 2 at a time because it's just me. Misty's coming to help, Aiden's coming to help, but they're doing homeschooling right now, finishing up from that because that, you know, that is important. So we're going to let them finish that while we get everything ready. We'll start breaking it down, and if they can help, great. If not, then it's easier to work a little at a time. And again, like I said, keeping it cold is priority. And then what we'll do is usually I will get in small cuttings, put our mix on it. We use a no nitrate no nitrate seasoning that doesn't have any kind of curing salt in or nothing like that. We want it as just as honest and wholesome as possible. So we don't use, like, I'll show you what we had. This was from years ago. It's still not even, we haven't used it probably in 10 years. But the reason I keep it is because it's good to have on hand, but I don't want to ever think that I have to use this for curing. And this is the pink curing salt. I don't use this. If you use it, please, I'm not dogging you out for it, but this is a nitrate based. Now this is made in USA, this is non-GMO, but the more you read about this stuff, I'm just not curing. I don't want to use curing salt. I try to use just salt and pepper, different spices that we have, and I feel way better about feeding that to my family without using some kind of, major, curing salt or nitrate system, because again, years ago they didn't do it, and if I just say I'm going to do everything that everybody tells me to do now, I feel like we would be up a creek without a paddle and not focused on true food sustainability. So we try to stay away from all that. You have different grinding blades. I mean, you can do any kind of sizing. Actually, on pork, I like mine a little bit bigger because it's easier to work with. If I'm doing something like lamb or deer, I'm using a smaller plate. But if I'm doing something like pork, I tend to like the bigger plate. It's easier to work with and makes my life easier, especially when I start mixing a lot. And it actually goes through the grinder pretty easy without me having to go in there and fix it and clean it out and all that. When people say they gotta have the top of the line stuff, we're using this little grinder. I want you to look at this. This little grinder, and we use a hand stuffer. That little grinder has probably done, oh my gosh, just thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pounds. Now, one day I hope to upgrade to a nicer grinder and make it easier for me. But to be honest with you, you can do this. And this is, I think I paid like 60, 70 bucks for it years ago. And it's done years and years of worth of food sustainability. So when people say, oh, we got to have the nicest of the nicer, if you are doing some bigger animals and you're breaking them down and you're keeping bone in on some stuff, yeah, you may have to have some bandsaws and things. But when you talk about like what we've done, we can break down a whole pig without actually using anything but a straight saw and some knives. And that's what I want to get back to, is understanding that you can do this literally. I mean, the first video I did, if you go back and watch me breaking down a hog, I literally did it on Misty's kitchen table. She probably killed me after that video, but it's literally that easy. It's not hard to do. So we have probably close to 175, 200 pounds of meat that we've cut up in little cuttings. We've already started grinding this. We'll keep this process going for the next few hours. Every time we get to this point, I get burned out of anything meat. So I'm ready to get done with this because it's just a long process every time we do it. It's all clean. Table's here, but mess is gone. We're tired, we're worn out. We still have lard, of course, to do because we'll be doing that over time. I'll show you this right quick. Excuse the washer and dryer. But let's see where we put this. So we end up grinding here. There's some up here. Let's see. You can see that. See all that right there? All that, and some up there. And we also did sausage, but then we also did just regular pork. Pork lets us get almost like ground beef, so it allows us to go farther, like I was telling you earlier. So we got another 35 to 40 pounds of just kind of like we raised beef. So total in all, we got about a little over 300 pounds, I think, in ground and also in lard. So it's been a long day. I'm glad that's over. This is how we do sustainability. It doesn't make it easy sometimes, but it is worth the trouble. The lard that we're rendering in a big crock pot right now, and then eventually, once we render it, we'll show you how we literally pour it up in the jars, and it becomes the fat source for everything we need. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. We literally love doing this. It's hard sometimes. I mean, there's days that we're so tired. Misty just said we got done cooking and we had hamburgers off the grill, which, you know, our meat. So it was great to have that. It's special because the hard work we put into them to then turn around and we're able to enjoy the harvest. It's just a game changer and a blessing. We appreciate you watching. Please subscribe to the channel. God bless.